Okay, today, March 14th. Oh, today is Pi Day. March 14th, 2024. It's our 47th session, reading Urantia book with Heidi. We keep reading paper 112, Personality Survival, The Phenomenon of Death. 今天是海地读御书第47次会议，我们继续读112篇人格的续存要从第3节死亡现象开始读。Okay, Heidi.
We didn't finish Phenomenon of Death yet?
We haven't started yet.
No, but I'm on my place mark was in the wrong place.
Yeah, we spent 2 sessions on
yes.
on 2 on
yeah,
section
I just
2.
had I just had my bookmark on the next page by mistake. Okay, sure. So is Shenli going to read after I do? Translate?
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, I can read the Chinese.
Okay, so I'm going to start the Phenomenon of Death, section 3. Urantians generally recognize only one kind of death, the physical cessation of life energies. But concerning personality survival, there are really 3 kinds: spiritual or soul death, if and when mortal man has finally rejected survival, when he has been pronounced spiritually insolvent, morantally bankrupt, in the conjoint opinion of the adjuster and the surviving seraphim, when such coordinate advice has been recorded on Uversa, and after the censors and their reflective associates have verified these findings, thereupon do the rulers of Vorvantan order the immediate release of the indwelling monitor. But this release of the adjuster in no way affects the duties of the personal or group seraphim concerned with that adjuster abandoned individual. This kind of death is final in its significance, irrespective of the temporary continuation of the living energies of the physical and mind mechanisms. From the cosmic standpoint, the mortal is already dead. The continuing life merely indicates the persistence of the material momentum of cosmic energies. And before you read, Shenli,
Yeah.
Ricky, I just want to remind people that that we live in the super universe of Vorvantan, and that the capital of Vorvantan is Uversa.
对，他就是在那个神力读这之前哈，就是一个说明，超级宇宙这个超级宇宙，叫奥温顿，然后它的首府是在 Uversa。
Okay.
OK。第3节死亡现象。预染煞人通常只承认一种死亡，即生命能量的物质性停止。但是关于人格的续存，实际上有3种死亡。1. 灵性灵魂死亡。如果当根据调整者和续存炽天使的共同意见，他被宣告在灵性上无法偿付，灵智上破产时，当这种协调的建议在尤沃萨被记录，监察者及其反射性伙伴核实了这些发现之后，于是奥温顿的统治者们下令立即释放内住告诫者。 但是这种对调整者的释放，并不影响与被调整者放弃的个体相关的个人或团体炽天使的职责。无论身体和心智机制的生命能量是否暂时延续，这种死亡的意义都是最终的。从宇宙的立场来看，凡人已经死亡。持续的生命仅仅表示宇宙能量中物质动能的持续存在。Heidi?
Okay, I think that before I go into it, I think that we should read the intellectual and physical deaths, all three deaths, then we can talk about all three of them at once. So I'm going to read the next two part, the intellectual and the physical deaths right now, before we talk about them. So we have a full idea.
Yeah.
So number two is, so there's three kinds of death. Number two, no, the first one was spiritual death. The second one is intellectual mind death, and that's what I'm going to read now. When the do you want to translate that, Ricky?
他说这个因为3种死亡嘛，他要把3种都死亡都先读完，然后再一起解释。
Okay, intellectual death. Section 2, intellectual death. When the vital circuits of higher adjutant ministry are disrupted through the aberrations of intellect, or because of the partial destruction of the mechanism of the brain, and if these conditions pass a certain critical point of irreparability, the indwelling adjuster is immediately released to depart for Divinington. On the universe records of a mortal personality is considered to have met with death whenever the essential mind circuits of human will action have been destroyed. And again, this is death irrespective of the continuing function of the living mechanism of the physical body. The body minus the volitional mind is no longer human, but according to the prior choosing of the human will, the soul of such an individual may survive. And now I'm going to read number 3, physical body and mind death. So this is the material death, physical death. When death overtakes a human being, the adjuster remains in the citadel of the mind until it ceases to function as an intelligent mechanism. About the time that the measurable brain energies cease their rhythmic vital pulsations. Following this dissolution, the adjuster takes leave of the vanishing mind, just as unceremoniously as entry was made years before, and proceeds to Divinington by way of Uversa. And before you read, Chun-Li, Ricky, if you could just explain that Divinington is the planet in the central universe of Havona, where the thought it's like their planet, where they come from and where they go whenever they want to go, home or go for training, or it's their world, Divinington, the thought adjuster's world.
所以 Divinington 吧，神之圣都，它是在中央哈瓦那宇宙那个的一个星球，是思想调整者的家。他就是在思想调整者在那儿进行培训的地方。
这圣都。OK， 2. 智性心智死亡。当高级辅助侍奉的重要回路因为智力的偏差或大脑机制的部分破坏而受到扰乱，如果这些状况越过了某个不可修复的临界点，内住调整者会被立即释放，并前往神之圣都。 并前往神之圣都。在宇宙记录中，只要人类意愿行动的重要心智回路被摧毁，凡人人格就被视为死亡。再次强调，这是死亡，无论肉体的生命机制是否继续运转。没有意志心智的身体不再是人，但是根据人类意愿先前的选择，这样一个个体的灵魂可能会继续续存。下面，
对，它还在转，我是调整了一下那个记得特别慢，调整了一下它中间的那个线，因为我金身不好用了嘛，我在用 Word 发现它没对齐，调整了一下它转这么半天。你可以打开你的
我看看。
Word not responding。
Are you waiting for me?
No, my Word doesn't work. It's so slow, so I'm waiting for it to come back.
You're waiting for me, right?
No. I'm waiting for my Word to come back. Now it's not responding.
Oh, okay.
第三，身体、肉体和心智心智死亡。当一个人死亡降临时，调整者会留在心智的堡垒中，直到它不再作为一个智能机制发挥作用为止。这大约是可测量的脑能量停止规律性生命脉动的时间。随着这种解散，调整者就像多年前突然进入一样，告别正在消亡的心智，经由尤沃萨前往神之圣都。OK，
三种死亡。
Okay, Ricky, you're working. It's working.
Yeah, we are done reading the 3 kinds of death.
Okay, good. I'm here. I'm back. I just have to get my coffee. Okay, so
Yeah, no hurry.
thank you. Okay, so now there's 3 kinds of death: physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual, which is also the spirit and the soul. When the spirit goes, the soul goes.
就是3种死亡嘛，第一种是灵性或者灵魂死亡，第二种是智性或者心智死亡，第三种是身体死亡，就是然后身体死的时候，肉体和心智都不在了，这3种死亡状况。
Okay, now let's start with they did the spiritual first. If and when mortal man is finally rejected, well, this when he has been pronounced spiritual mortal bank in the conjoint opinion of the adjustments from okay, when such okay, so they're saying, first of all, it's interesting that they say if and when mortal man has finally rejected survival. So the Urantia book is always telling us that whether you survive or not is always your choice. Most people, we know that most people in this era, okay, later when the planet is more evolved and settled in light and life, most people will survive. But in the current era, where there's so much evil and confusion on this planet, most people don't survive. You can translate that.
对，他就是说，就是第一种灵性的死亡呢，就是实际上是由我们的自由意志选择拒绝续存造成的。现在在我们这样的一个时代，就是很多的困惑，很多的罪恶的时代，就是很少人会选择续存。那在将来呢，就是更进化的时代呢，就是当我们的星球锚定在光与生命当中，可能更多的人会选择续存，但是在目前这样的一个时代，好像是没有。
And we're talking, I mean, I think it's clear that we're talking about, this is reincarnation. We're talking about eternal life. We're talking about life after death.
对，我们现在讲的是你这只生命，这一期生命完了之后的生命，是我们内在生命的续存。
So, so there is reincarnation, absolutely, but the difference with the Urantia book teachings is this is our first life, and we don't come back to this planet. We go on to other worlds.
对，那根据《玉染下之说》，在地球上，现在我们的生命只是我们的第一期生命，我们下一期生命是在别的星球上。
But when sorry, but when I say this is our first life, yes, it is our first life as we exist with our personality, but our thought adjuster, which is also a part of us, is eternal. So they've lived forever, back to eternity, and they have lived in other people on other worlds. So that's why we have such a strong sense of timelessness, or of ancient memories, or of having been here a long time or lived before, because our thought adjuster is a part of us. And this thought adjuster, this is not their first life. So so we're a composite being. We're made up of ourselves, our personality. This is our first life, and our thought adjuster, who's been around forever.
就是我称为这个我们在地球上第一期生命是基于我们的人格来讲的，我们存在在这个星球上第一次生命。但是呢，这个思想调整者呢，他是在很多的人格当中生存过的。那么我们经常的我们会有这个时间是永恒的，或者我们有一些关于古代过去的时间的记忆，实际上这不是我们曾经活过的，而是我们里边的思想调整者曾经活过的人生。所以我们这个自我性是一个合成体，是我们的人格独特的人格加上思想调整者，就是一起运作的这么一个合成体。
So I believe that this is one reason there's so much confusion about reincarnation on our planet. I personally believe this is one reason.
他相信这个就是为什么那么多人在这个星球上，他们相信有这个生死轮回那个现象。
But to reiterate, or to repeat again, if and when the mortal man has finally rejected survival, when he has been pronounced spiritually insolvent, morally bankrupt, in the conjoined opinion of the adjuster and the surviving seraphim. So when we, the only way a human being does not survive or reincarnate or go on to the Urantia worlds after physical death is because it is our choice, whether it has to be a conscious choice or not. I don't think it has to be a conscious choice. This is just, I'm just guessing. I don't think it has to. Maybe it does, but whether it's conscious or not, it is our choice. We are given the choice. We can survive and live eternally. We can go on. We can meet God. We can end up being godlike, or we can just live this one life like any other animal on the planet and die. It's our choice.
对，那个，对，他就是这个地方，第3.2段说，就是当我们就是当这个 凡人最终拒绝了续存。这个拒绝呢，有可能是有意识的，也可能是无意识的。总之呢，就是调整者和续存制天使呢会给出意见。那么如果去判定这个人在这个灵性上无法偿付，灵智上破产，那么就到时候思想调整者就被释放，这样呢，这个人格就不会达到续存。然后这个肉身死亡之后呢，这个思想调整就被释放，那么他就相当于就不会到下一期，不会就是说续存到下一个生命，因为他
So
选择就是说不去跟神融合，所以他就不会永远的存在下去。
So we may start out differently with different qualities and skills and cultures and different upbringings, but we're all every single, even retarded, mentally deficient people, everyone is equal in the sense of we all have the same choice of surviving or not, everyone, and we all have the same destiny. We may start off a little different, but we're all headed to the same place. We can all go as far as we want. Nothing holds anyone back. We all have, our destiny is God, and everyone has the same destiny. We can all go as far as we want. No one has an advantage in any way in that sense. We may have an advantage here in this life, but it starts evening out. The further we go, the more we can all be anything we want to be.
对，我们就是个人的那个品性啊，个人的那些的天赋啊，或者文化啦，还是教养抚养长大的方式有可能有不同，甚至有一些人呢有脑力方面也许有点低下，但是呢，我们都有同样的选择，就是选择续存的机会。有同样的灵魂，它就是有同一个目的地，都去同一个地方，没有什么东西能阻挡我们或者障碍我们去达到神，没有人有特别的有利条件。我们随着这个一期一期的生命，就是越来越平等。所以这个星球上的不平等的表象不是
So
不是真
so
实的。
sorry.
没事。
So they say that when he has been pronounced spiritual, so even when you reject survival, and you can, if you reject God, you definitely reject survival. But even when you reject survival, and they're calling it spiritually insolvent, morally bankrupt, you're basically you're rejecting all of your spiritual and soul capacity. You're rejecting all of this whole part of yourself, your thought adjuster, the soul, which has been developing all your life, either a lot or maybe a very little. If you're going to reject God, reject survival, your soul probably hasn't developed very much, but you still have a soul.
对你这个拒绝神呢，你就是拒绝续存，所以就是这个文章中所说的灵性上无法偿付啊，灵智上破产，指的是这个意思，就是相当于你没有充分的应用灵性啊或者灵魂的潜力。
So even after you reject survival, you want no part of it. You don't want a spiritual life. You don't want to live forever. You don't want to meet God. You don't believe in God. You don't care about God. Even then, you don't die until the adjuster and the seraphim, the surviving seraphim, your guardian angels, whether you have personal guardian angels, which you probably don't if you're going to reject survival, but you'll probably have a group guardian angel. But those angels and the adjuster have to both agree that you've rejected survival, and then such coordinate advice has been recorded on Uversa. And after the censors and their reflective associates have verified these findings. So it goes through a whole process. You're not just like, oh, rejected survival, he's gone, let's put an end to that person. No, it's the adjuster and your angels agree this person has rejected God. And then it goes to Uversa. And then the censors, who are universal censors, who are these very, very high beings who kind of have the ability to think of it like miraculous statistician mathematicians or statisticians. They can see something and just immediately add everything up, add the positive, add the negative, add the good, add the bad. They can see everything in a mathematical statistical context. So they make no mistakes about where someone stands, even in a spiritual context.
对，就是你的是否续存呢？你看有思想调整者啊，还有护卫天使啊，不管是集体的还是个人的护卫天使啊，他们都要同意这样的意见，并且呢，就是有 Versa 的监察者也要去反射伙伴啊，这些都要去，这些都是宇宙监察都是很高的这些存有，他们要来给出意见。那么他们的意见，他们就像是一个非常非常的有经验的统计学家呀、数学家呀，他们就是把你的正正负负啊，你都充分的计算过了，所以他们的判断是不会有错误的。
So the rulers of Orvantan, okay, we live in the super universe of Orvantan, and the capital is Uversa. And the rulers of our super universe, who are located in Uversa, the capital, they're called the Ancients of Days. So and there's three of them, and there's three Ancients of Days on every capital in all 7 super universes.
那个我们的超级宇宙有 Versa 这个的统治者在位于这Urantia 超级宇宙 Urantia 这个的统治者他们是住在 Uversa 这个 capital。那个统治者呢是3个亘古常在者。
So when they say the rulers of Orvantan, they're talking about those 3 Ancients of Days.
对，当他这里提到奥温顿的统治者的时候，实际上指的是那3个亘古常在者。
They're very, very, I mean, they're Trinity origin beings, which means they were created by God the Father, the Eternal Son, and the Infinite Spirit in the beginning of time. That's why they're called the Ancients of Days. They're very, very, very high spiritual beings, very godlike.
这个亘古常在者呢，是由最起初的3位一体的神，就是万有之父圣子，还有无限之灵，那个就3位一体的这个神创造的是非常非常高的存有。
So there's 3 Ancients of Days who are the rulers of each super universe, and there's 7 super universes. So that means there's only 21 Ancients of Days in all the Master Universe.
因为有7个这个我们的主宇宙哈，有7个超级宇宙嘛。那个每一个超级宇宙都有3个这个统治者，就3个亘古常在的，就是说7个，我们整个的主宇宙有21个这样的统治者。
So right here in this first sentence, they're telling us that all of these billions of people who reject survival, especially in the earlier stages of a planet, even all of these people, your own thought adjuster, who is God, your own guardian angels, who are very, very spiritual beings, they just give their verdict. They make a decision, but they send it to Uversa. And then the universal censors who make no mistakes, who can judge everything, then they confirm that choice. And then it goes to the Ancients of Days, the rulers of the super universe, who gives the final decree. So they, our universe, our gods, they take ending life very, very seriously. They're telling us right here, your life never ends by mistake. There's no mistake about it. When you reject survival, that choice of yours gets confirmed on the very, very highest levels of the universe.
就是那个一个生命的结束哈，这个是非常严肃的、非常重要的一件事嘛。那这个星球上更多上亿万的生命哈，尤其在这个比较发展早期的这个星球上面哈，那个你的不能续存的这个决定啊，这个你自己做了决定，然后思想调整者啊。护卫天使啊，他们就把这个是把这个意见就传到那个宇宙监察者，宇宙监察再汇报到这个超级宇宙的这个统治者那里去，由超级宇宙统治者来给出最后的判决。所以这灵性生命的终结是一个非常严肃的事情，是不能够犯错的。
Now, I doubt, this is me, Heidi talking. I doubt that the adjuster and the angels have ever made a mistake, have ever said, this person rejected survival. And then it goes to Uversa, the capital of their super universe. And the censors say, no, they really haven't. Let's give them another chance. I doubt that's ever happened, but maybe it has. If it has, it's so extremely rare, because that would mean your thought adjuster was wrong. Your thought adjuster has lived inside you and is a part of you and is a part of God. How could they ever be wrong about whether or not you rejected God? They are God. They're in you. But what this is telling us is this universe that we live in is so fair, is so just. They're even second guessing God. They're even saying, well, God decided this, but let's be sure. They want you to survive so badly. They refuse to end your life without going way beyond the call to ensure that no mistake has been made.
海底这是他的这个评论和猜想哈，他就说这个拒绝续存呢，就是很这么严肃的事情，就是当这个思想调整者啊，还有 Guardian Angel 给出意见的时候，那个相当于在经过很多的这个审查嘛，他就说很少就会思想调整者和他会犯错误，因为他本身他就是你的一部分呢，他也是神的 天赋万有之父的一部分呢。但是呢，就为了体现这个公正性呢，它就是要经过这么一系列的一种验证，甚至就是试图想要挑战神他的判断啊，是吧？所以他通过这种的审慎的态度，相当于向我们展示他就是整个的源头啊，万有之父啊，就是都非常的希望你能够续存，这个做的这个努力是就是说一定要保证这个最终你不能续存的这个结论是没有错误的。
It's like, think of it like every human being in America, or let's say United States, any decision, any person that goes to jail, it has to be a Supreme Court decision, the highest justices in the whole country. It's the equivalent of that. In other words, if you're afraid that you've not been a good person, you've made a lot of mistakes, you've done bad things, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to survive. But deep in your heart, you really want to be a good person. You really want to know God. Don't be afraid, because if there's any chance that you really want to be good, you haven't been good, but you really truly desire to be a good person and to know God, you'll be given that chance.
对，这就是他给了一个比喻，就相当于这个，比如说美国所有的人，他们当这个有一个判决说他要去，有犯罪了，做监牢了，然后这样的案例都要被送到最高的最高法院，再去做审查啊，再去重审啊，是不是这个决定是正确的？那么就不能够误判任何一个人啊，就是这样的。如果你你觉得你自己不是一个好人，然后有可能不能达到续存，那么你再想想，你是不是从心底里你是想做好的，你是想像神一样的。如果你的确有这样的一种渴望，渴望知道了解神，渴望像神一样，就是有这样的一个愿心，小小的愿心。那么你都会达到续存的。
I shouldn't have said anyone who goes to jail. I should have said anyone in America who receives a death sentence. That would be a better metaphor, right? A better analogy. Because
他就是去那个纠正一下前面的，不是说你去投入监牢的人，而是说每一个被判死刑的，对，都要被提到这个最高法院去，就是说是去重审，要不要这个人真的给他判死刑，就是说判死刑的这么严肃的决定，要非常非常审慎去做出来。
see, I personally think a death sentence, capital punishment, is okay, because I know there's life after death. I know that it's actually, for many people, life only begins when they die. They've had such a terrible experience here. They only begin to be happy and begin to live and begin to understand when they die. So I don't think a death sentence is such a bad thing for really messed up people, or people who have already absolutely chosen not to survive anyway, and they just want to hurt people. That's their only purpose in life. But the problem here in our country is very often we sentence innocent people to death by mistake because our justice system is so screwed up.
他就说这个死刑那个吧，他也不是完全的就是反对这个，因为实际上从一个角度来说，真正的生命是从你死了之后 开始的，对那些就是的确是生活就搞得一团糟的人，也许死亡真的是他们一个重新开始的机会。但是呢，真正的问题在现在是说，在这个国家有很多人，也许没有罪的人都会被判很重的刑，包括死刑，这个是问题所在。
So when you send someone to death here, unfortunately, our justice system is so bad that we kill innocent people. So, you know, it's not a good system. But theoretically, when you send someone to death here for any reason, you're just releasing them to a better world, or they're already dead, because they're in a minute. What this just tells us is, if you reject God, you die spiritually, even if your body is still alive.
嗯，对，就是
We're going to read about that in a minute.
死亡其实就是这个国家那个公正司法公正那么差，就是对他有时候会错判嘛，但是有的时候真的这种死亡呢，有可能会把他释放到更好的世界，但是这个地方文中的当中的这种的灵智性死亡是说你即使肉体死了之后，你其实也没有办法达到灵性的续存，实际上就是一个像永远的死亡一样，你没有办法进到更好的世界。
Basically, you can't kill someone. We can't, because spiritually, they're either going to go to the next world, or go to, we'll read in a minute. They can go to a sleep state and eventually go to the next world, but they're either going to survive. Let's just say their spirit's either going to survive, or they're already spiritually dead. So you can't spiritually kill someone on this earth.
对，实际上本质上来讲，你没有办法杀掉任何人的，因为就是你那个我们灵性尚在的话，我们就会到另外一个世界，或者就是那种暂时把你弄在一种休眠的状态，然后再过后再达到一种人格的复苏。过后我们会读到，对，所以就是灵性的续存与否，其实决定你是不是真的能死，不是肉体的死亡决定你是否能那个续存。
这个地方能不能请海蒂解释一下这个反射性伙伴是什么意思？就是 reflective associates 是什么？
Heidi, Shirley asked that after the universal sensor, the reflective partner, who are the reflective partner?
Okay, I'll answer that in a minute. I just wanted to finish the thought, which was
Yes.
that when I say you can't kill someone spiritually, that's true. You can't. We can't. But you can deprive someone of their mortal experience. So, in other words, some people advocate abortion or say, hey, killing someone's not so bad because you just send them to the next world. But you are depriving someone of their mortal experience, which is a very important part of our development. So when you're depriving them of the experience that they'll never be able to get again, you only have one physical material life, and you learn so much here.
对，那我说这个杀死某人没有办法灵性的杀死他们，但是呢，你杀死一个人呢，你就实际上剥夺了这个在物质世界的体验的这个权利， 继续体验的权利，或者是那种就是流产，你就人工流产，就是剥夺了这一个人格整个的他在这个物质界生存获得经验的权利。那么在物质界的那个生活体验，实际上是我们那个的发展进化的一个重要的一个组成部分。
Now, to answer Shenli's question is the next sentence, which I'm interpreting, which is when the adjuster and the seraphim send their verdict to Uversa and the censors verify it, and it says, and their reflective associates have verified these findings. I think what that means is that there are these reflective spirits that are able to, it's like a way of communicating from one, the universe is so huge that it could take years for a message to get from, from the universal sisters in Uversa down to the seraphim in Urantia or something like that. Now the thought adjuster will know everything automatically, but there are the spirits, and they can reflect. We have to read about them to because it's complicated, but they can reflect people, beings, or to other places. So it's a way of like communicating across huge distances. Like you can't communicate with the sensors, but you can like sort of tune into the reflective spirits to get the same information, if that makes sense. So think of it like they're spirits, they're beings, but they're like a reflection of something. So they can project information to a far distant place. They're like, think of it like that.
就有点像那个就是用来交流的一个机制，宇宙当中用来交流的一个机制，像这些反射性的灵，就是因为那就是说距离遥远呢，它是通过这种的反射机制，像投射这个信息，通过这种投射的方式，就是把这个信息来就是传达给那些监察者，从那个护卫天使啊，他们这个，然后投射到远端的首府的监察者，它是一个那个交流机制。
Maybe when we're done today, we can, if Shenli, if you want to stay on a little longer, we can look up reflective spirits and read about them, for 5 minutes.
对，
OK
应该在1、2部分，有。对，你要是查关键词，把那个地方都
我可以回头去查一下。
So, okay, sure. And now, so it says, thereupon do the rulers of Avantan order the immediate release of the. So when the censors and the rulers of Avantan, the ancients of days, when they all agree that you've rejected survival, at that point, probably through the reflective spirits, but let's not go into that. At that point, the ancients of days order the immediate release of the indwelling. Order the immediate release of the indwelling mind. So that at that point, at that moment, your thought adjuster gets released from your body forever, and it goes back to Divinington. It's no longer associated with you ever again. You're gone. You don't have a thought adjuster anymore.
对，这个宇宙监察者啊，还有亘古常在者呀，就是他们一致做出决定之后， 就是判断你是拒绝续存的，那么更不常在者就会下令，就是内住的思想调整者会马上被释放回这个神之圣都，就是思想调整者的总部。
Now, this is what we're reading is amazing and astounding, because if you note, it will tell in the next few sentences, it says it, but if you notice, it doesn't say anything about physical death. We're just talking about spiritual death. And what it says in the next couple sentences is, this can happen if your body is still alive.
Oh my goodness！
So this is
这一
amazing.
段后边尤其是非常的令人讶异的。那么他到现在为止，他没有说一点关于这个肉体死亡的事，就是说，实际上肉身没有死亡的时候，有可能信仰调整者已经离开了。
So when we talk about soulless people without souls, there are people among us, people on this planet, and I would say many of them, who have no thought adjusters. Their thought adjusters have been released. They're just beings, bodies, material beings with intellects walking around. Their spirits are gone.
Oh my goodness！
I know, it's amazing.
对，我们经常会提到，就是没有灵魂的人，实际上在我们中间就有那些没有灵魂的人，思想调整者已经不在他们里边了，已经被释放了。那么他们好像显得是有智力的、有心识的，但是他们的灵魂、灵性的部分是已经走了。
And when they die physically, that's it. That's their body dies. That's it. Nothing, no decisions have to be made about their survival because they're already spiritually dead. So when they die, it's not like they're guardian angels and the thought adjuster and the ancients of days. No big deal has to be decided. That was already decided earlier in their life when they rejected survival. Whenever that happens, at any point in your life, when you finally reject God, and people do it at different times, this decision is made and your thought adjuster is released.
对，所以啊，当这个人他物质生命死的时候，那时候就没有什么决定要做了，因为早就已经做出来了，不是什么，那死了就死了，就整个的这个人身心灵都死了嘛。那么，因为他这个续存的决定，早在他肉身还没有死之前都已经做出来了，因为他是最终是。不是最终，他是因为他已经做了选择，是拒绝续存的，所以拒绝续存这个就是在人的生命当中任何的时候都可以做出的。
But they say, but this is interesting sentence. They say, but this release of the adjuster, so your adjuster leaves you, in no way affects the duties of the personal or group seraphim concerned with that adjuster abandoned individual. So this is saying, first of all, it's interesting because they say personal or group seraphim. So that's personal guardian angel or group guardian angel. So they're saying in this sentence, they're telling us that even if you reached your third circle or are evolved enough to have a personal guardian angel, that's pretty evolved. You could still abandon God. You could still choose not to survive. That's what they're telling us. I would say most likely you have a group guardian angel if you're that anti-God. But they're saying even if you've reached your third circle and have your own personal guardian angel, you can still reject God. But if you do that, your guardian angel is still going to, it says it in no way affects their duties. they're assigned to guard you. And they're saying here, whether you choose survival or not, whether you're spiritually dead or not, they're still gonna be your guardian angel. You're still gonna have a guardian angel in this lifetime.
哦，对，这个像调整者离开来，并不等于说那个护卫你的那个个人或团体持天使的职责也被解除了，他还一直也还在护卫你，到生命的终了。那么即使你到达了第三个圆圈，那么也有，如果你不选择续存的话，决定跟神对着干，那也不一定会续存。
Now we can ask each other, we might wonder, why would you have a guardian angel when you've already rejected survival? You're just a walking body. You're no longer a spiritual being. You're spiritually dead. As far as the universe is concerned, you don't exist anymore. You're not on the roll calls. You've been your name has been deleted from the files. You're gone. It's like you never existed. But why would you still have a guardian angel?
那你可能会问了，你就是在团长走了之后，我们就是一个行走的身体，已经不是一个灵性的存有，你已经不在名册当中了，已经被删除了，从文件当中被删除了，为什么还有那个护卫天使来保护你呢？
So we don't know. They don't tell us.
那不知道，这个上面也没有说，为什么？
But we can guess, right?
可以，他说可以猜呀。
And my guess would be maybe they want to protect us because we might have children or family or affect other people, or maybe, maybe they'll keep us from getting in a car. I mean, maybe it's just something like that. Who knows?
他就猜嘛，他就说，那你可以，你的存在会影响到别的人啊，你可能有孩子啊，或者不保护你，你就是会发生车祸呀，车里还有别的人啊什么的，就是说为了别的，而且跟他相关的别的利益，这个护卫天使还是不能够解除他的职责的。
Maybe they're not guarding us as much as the people around us.
对，就是有可能就是为了保护这个人周围的那些的财富，才那个有价值的东西。
Or maybe they just, they're attached to us, and that even though we've rejected God, they still care about us to an extent. I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what the guardian angel does anyway. So it's really hard to speculate why they would still do it to someone without a spirit, but it's telling us that they do.
因为我不知道这个，因为我也不知道到底这个护卫天使他们到底干啥，所以只能是这个猜了。
I mean, I do think that guardian angels physically and spirit, they really do guard us. I think they wouldn't have the name guardian. I don't think we'd call them guardian angels unless they were responsible for really guarding us against danger to the extent that they can. In some cases they can't always do it.
望文生义，那这个护卫天使呢，就是保护我们的。
The other thing is that if you look up pictures of angels, you'll always find some pictures of warrior angels, and they have shields, and sometimes they have swords, and they're very, they're big and strong and very well, they're angels, so they're incredibly noble, but they're so if you look up pictures of angels, you will always see some warrior angels and some not warrior angels. Now, in all my research about near-death experiences, the people who see angels also see regular angels and warrior angels. So because of this, the pictures and the near-death experiences, I believe there's definitely warrior angels. And, you know, they carry swords, they have shields, you know, at least that's how they appear to us. And, you know, that goes along with the idea of guarding us, right? If they're warriors and they're guardians, that makes you feel very secure.
对，那个天使啊，有一般的天使，还有那种护卫战士，天使有拿着盾的，拿着剑的，就至少这个图画当中，关于天使图画当中有这样的形象，那么就是有一个保护的意味。那个濒死体验当中，有一些人也见到一般的天使，也见到那种战士的天使。至少他们向我们显现是那个样子的，所以跟我们的安全有关系。
Now it says, after it says that the guardian is still going to do its duty, whether we're spiritually dead or not. After that, it says, this kind of death is final in its significance. I just told you this, but this is what it's saying. This kind of death is final in its significance, irrespective of the temporary continuation of the living energies of the physical and mind mechanisms. They're just saying, you're still alive. Your body's still alive. Your mind is working. Your body's working, but your spirit is gone. Your thought just is gone. And then it says, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. 就是这个护卫天使他继续执行他的职责嘛，然后呢，并且这个灵性的死亡呢是最终的，就是不论身体和心智机制的生命能量是否暂时延续，就是你看着还是一个活的人，但是你灵性上就是已经死了，这种死亡是最终的，就是非常的具有终极意义的。
And the
Ricky.
less,
Ricky，
Yes.
那我就想问，像我孩子那样子的，给他的经历，就是说他的那个，就说他发生那个事情的时候，就是说他的灵智体已经死亡了，对吗？Before 他真正肉体死亡的时候。
那个这3个死亡哈，我们都讲完了之后，然后你这个案例可能非常的有意义，我们那个时候再讨论好吗？因为下面就讲到
我就想要问，可是我就觉得我好多问题要问，我不懂要问什么。
对，我知道，我
Okay.
我们先把这3个都弄完，然后我们就有答案了，应该。好的。
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
what did Anne want to know?
Yeah, and wanna, very eager to learn about what her son's situation kind of corresponding to whatever death this 3, so I told her that we are going to go through this 3 kind of death, and then we can talk about her case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from the cosmic standpoint, the mortal is already dead. The continuing life merely indicates the persistence of the material momentum. So they're saying once the physical body and the mind is created and is formed and is living, it has a momentum. It's going to live itself out. It's not going to just die when the spirit goes. There's a physical momentum that's going to just, go till it stops. And that regardless of whether it has a spirit. But now I don't know if your soul just dies when your thought adjuster goes, but it definitely can't develop anymore, because we know the soul only develops when your thought adjuster and your mind work together. So we know that the minute your thought adjuster goes, the soul stops developing. I think it's entirely possible that your soul doesn't even function anymore, just because I think that people who don't have thought adjusters don't really have much of a soul either. But that's just my guessing, conjecture.
Yeah. 对，所以他就说你的这个物质身体啊、心智啊，它有它的这种物质动力来维持它还在继续运作。那么当这个灵性走了，真正的灵性走了以后，但是这个灵魂呢，是不是死了，他不确定，但是至少能够保证的是，它不再继续进化了，因为它的继续进化实际上是有赖于我们，就是说，相当于思想调整者的存在，它才能继续进化的。但是还有可能，非常有可能，它这个灵魂就是不发挥作用了。
So it's good for us to keep in mind that there are people on this planet, and I would say many, but who knows how many, but there are people who have no spirit there. So keep that in mind when you try to reason with them or convince them that there is a God or Jesus, or, Jesus said, don't cast your pearl before swine. And what he meant was, don't waste your time. Don't try to change someone who can't be changed. Don't try to help someone who can't be helped. He's saying that there are people who are like swine, not to insult pigs, but they have no spirit, no thought adjuster. Don't waste time on them. They're not, you're not going to get anywhere with them. It's a waste. Don't give them money. Don't give them, your time, your energy. I mean, you could give them money if you feel sorry for them because they're starving to death. But those people, they're going to suck your energy. They're going to spew hatred. It's going to hurt. It's not going to help you by interacting with them.
Yeah. 对，那么这个星球上的确有一些人，他是那里边没有灵性在里边的，要记住这一点，就是不要试图说服他们，然后圣经上有一句话说，不要把珍珠撒在猪跟前，这个不是说我们对猪有歧视，而是说我们不要试图去改变他们，甚至帮助他们。因为他们里边没有思想调整，没有灵性，就是不会有什么效果的。你的帮助，你的试图想要改变的愿望，不会有什么结果。不要在他们身上浪费时间、精力、金钱，他们只会就是说把你的能量就是榨取你的能量，他们只会就是把这个就是互相之间的一种仇恨，那就是散播恶的东西吧。就是说你跟他们去打交道，就是说没什么好处，相当于。
So when you have a thought adjuster, you basically, it's like a truth. I call it, it's my word I made up. It's called a truthometer. It's like a meter. It's like a Geiger counter. It registers the truth. It responds to the truth. You basically hunger for the truth. You're sensitive. You're moved by it.
对，如果你里边呢，这个思想调整者相当于一个，有思想调整在你里边就有真理探测器，你这个就会对真理的东西那个有反应，你就是非常渴望像神一样的。
And when you have no spirit, when you've rejected God, for some reason it seems that these people, they don't just reject God, they hate the truth. It bothers them. It upsets them. They absolutely hate it. That's why when all the people who tell the truth, they always have enemies. Someone's always trying to kill them. I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
对，如果里边没有灵性在的话，你就是那种反对神的，不光是反对，你是厌恶真理的，所以就是其实每一个每一个时期就有人传播真理的话，就是这些人会遭到迫害。
So it's not just wise and prudent not to cast your pearl before swine, not to waste time with people without spirit. It's also dangerous. You should try to avoid them.
对，他说不是光是就是说你明智的哈，小心的，就不去把那个珍珠撒在猪跟前，而是说不要去浪费时间。同时，你那样做也是很危险的，就是你把自己，有的是你传播真理，有的时候会把自己置于危险境地。
Jesus had a short life. He died when he was 33 years old, and he only preached for about 10 years or so. But he spent a lot of that time avoiding these people. He wasn't trying to convince them of anything. He really spent a lot of his time actually physically avoiding, getting away from, as far away as he could from these spiritless people.
对，那耶稣呢，在地上只生活了33年，然后有10年的时间，这个有传道，然后他有很大的一部分时间，他是避免跟那些人打交道的，不想跟他们任何的事情，他是就是避开他们的。对这种没有灵性的人，他是避开的。
They did. He almost definitely knew all along that they would eventually kill him, but he didn't want that to happen until he got his message out to the world the way he wanted to get it out, as much as he could.
对，那么他就是要利用时间，就把他想要传达的信息更多的传播出去，在还没有这个完成这个使命之前，他是不愿意受到这种迫害的，以至于中断自己的使命。
I don't know why. Maybe someday I'll figure it out. But when you reject God, I said this a minute ago, but I'm saying it again, then we'll move on to the next section. When you reject God, it seems that rejecting him isn't enough. You end up hating God and hating anyone who loves God.
对，这些那个拒绝神的人，不光是拒绝神，那么实际上他是厌恶、讨厌神，并且也很憎恨那个信神的人。
I could be wrong. This may be just the extreme cases, but it's certainly true in many cases.
这些有可能是比较极端的例子，但是也是真实的例子。
Okay, number 2, we covered that spiritual death. Number 2, the second kind of death that a person can experience is intellectual death. And this is very, very basic. It just means that your mind stops working, so you no longer have free will. But I'll explain a little more.
对。那么我们刚才讲的是，那个灵性的死亡。那么第二种死亡呢，就是心智的死亡，就是你的心智不停止工作了，没有自由意志了。
So on this planet, our minds are connected they're cosmically, actually probably physically also connected to these frequencies that they need to operate, and they're called, and they're spiritual forces, but they're called the adjutant mind spirits. So our minds operate on this world only by these 7 adjutant mind spirits.
对，我们心识能够工作，就是从宇宙的角度来说，是因为我们能够连通那个7个心智辅助之灵的频率。
Animal minds are also operate through the forces of the adjutant mind spirits.
动物的心识能够工作，也是那个跟这些的心智辅助之灵连接而可以工作的。
But the highest adjutant spirits are only human minds can be connected in tune with these higher spirits. The animal minds don't have this spirit. For example, the animal minds don't have the spirit of philosophy or worship. This is spirit, the more spiritual frequencies. They're not in tuned with those. They're not on the same frequency.
对，但是我们根据动物的它这个那个连接的这个频道频率是不同的，只有人类的心智才能够跟这个比较高的这个频率辅助侍奉之灵这个频率相协调，相这个它有这个灵性的追求哲学的思考还有能够敬拜神这都是因为它能够跟那高级辅助侍奉之灵能够结合，那个频率能够相合。
Our mind, even without thought adjusters, even without a developed soul, our minds are connected via their are connected vibrationally via frequency to these higher circuits. And that's why even little children like to talk about God, like to think about God, religion, like to philosophize, but animals don't. A squirrel's not sitting around thinking about God, but even children do, because from even when we're little, our minds are tuned into all of the adjutant spirits, even the higher spirits that the animals aren't tuned into. That's why even children will like to think about God and talk about God.
对，我们的这个心识呢，即使没有那个灵魂的辅助，也能够跟那个比较高的这个回路的震动相调频。那么就像小孩子他也会谈到神对，他就是受到这些辅助之灵的影响。
And these higher adjutant mind spirits, the higher spirits, that is what differentiates human beings from animals. That's the main differentiation.
对，就是是否受到这个高级辅助侍奉之灵的影响，是区分我们跟动物的一个重要的特征标志。
If we didn't have this connection to the higher adjutant mind spirits, if our minds weren't connected to these higher spirits, we would just be animals that look different. We would look like people, but we would just be another animal.
对，如果不是这些高级辅助心智之灵的作用，我们就跟动物没有什么两样，只是另外一种长相的动物而已。
So it says here, when the vital circuits of the higher adjutant ministry are disrupted through the aberrations of intellect or because of the partial destruction of the mechanism of the brain, And if these conditions pass a certain critical point of irreparability, the indwelling gesture is immediately released for divinity. So what this is saying is that when there's two ways that your mind can become disrupted, disconnected from the higher adjutant mind. In other words, your mind might still be connected to the lower mind spirits. You may be able to think. There are certain people who are brain damaged. They can still think, they can still operate, but there's something missing.
对，就是这个，对，当那个高级辅助侍奉之灵的部分如果被破坏了、被阻扰了，但是呢，你这个比较低的那一部分呢，跟动物一样的那一部分呢，有可能还是通路的。所以有的人虽然有一定的大脑的损伤，但是也还有心智。
So when something, now there's two ways that you can get disconnected from these higher adjutant spirits. One, your brain physically, the part of your brain that connects to these higher spirits can be physically damaged. And they say irreparable, if it's physically damaged, but it can be fixed, then you're still going to be alive spirit. Your thought adjuster is going to stay with you until it's fixed, because they know you'll get that back. But if it's irreparable, if your mind is physically damaged to the point that you can no longer have receptivity to these higher adjutant spirits, then you're dead. Then you're dead. You're not spiritually dead, but you're intellectually dead. And because your body is no longer intellectually alive, there's no reason for your thought adjuster to stay with you, because it can't communicate with you anymore.
Yeah, 那就是两种的方式。他说两种，第一种就是你大脑损伤的那个，你部分的脑有可能损伤了，如果是暂时的损伤，思想调整者还不会走。如果你这个永久性的损伤就没有办法修复的，你就没有办法跟那个高级辅助心智之灵传递，就这个仪器就没办法跟那个心理辅助之灵来联系，那么就是你这个容器就这个设备就坏了嘛，坏了，那你就是相当于思想调整没有办法跟你沟通了，那他就不能跟你待在一起了，所以思想调整也就被释放了。
So they're telling us that there's two ways that the mind can lose the ability to connect with the circuits of the higher adjutant ministry, that where the circuits will get disrupted. There's two ways. One, I just told you, is when the physical brain is so damaged, that part of the brain that can connect to these circuits is damaged. The other way is it says, they call it aberrations of intellect. So that means that mentally you distort your thinking so much that you intellectually reject God. You become evil. You don't like the truth. So they're telling us there's two, you can spiritually reject God and you can also reject God. And it's possible, now this is just me saying this, it's possible that you usually do both together, that the two go together.
就是刚才说的那种是物质性的损坏，就是破坏了这个回路，辅助心智之灵的回路，所以那个 在这种情况下，思想常人没办法跟你沟通，就被释放了。第二种就是你心智的头脑的，就是呃呃智性的，就是你拒绝那个
And
拒
it
绝
says,
思想调整者啊，不拒绝灵性的教导吧。然后就是你的思想被扭曲了，就是脑力也被扭曲了。那这种情况也没有办法接受思想调整者的指导。
and it says, it talks about these two different ways that your mind can lose its connection to these higher circuits. But it says there's two different ways, the mental decisions that you make, and also aberrations when your mind gets kind of crazy, really. You're not thinking clearly, you're evil. But also you might just physically, be impaired so that you're not really completely all there. There's something missing physically. So but it says, and if these conditions, so that means both of them, both methods can pass a certain critical point of irreparability. So what that is saying is that I already said you might be brain damaged, but it may be able to be repaired. So your thought adjuster is going to stay there till it's fixed. But it says that the mental aberrations, so that means your thinking is so distorted that you can no longer connect to these higher adjutant spirits. But it's saying that could be fixed too, because it says when it passes a certain point of irreparability. So what it's saying here is telling us that your mind might become so distorted that you lose contact with these higher adjutant spirits, but you might fix it. Something might happen to you where you fix your mind, where you choose to repair it yourself. Now that might be an example of that might be where someone worships Satan, and for 10 years they're involved in the most evil possible stuff. They're definitely on their way to rejecting God, but sometimes they get saved. Sometimes they change. So that's what it's telling us. Your mind can get completely distorted, but it can also, after a point, it's beyond repair. But up until that point, it can still be fixed.
对，即使是那个心智出现偏差，那么它也可以被修复的。但是到了一个点，它没有办法被修复的时候，那么这个时候像调整不也会得到释放。你就说明心智的偏差是像扭曲啊，心智的扭曲啊。那比如说这个人有可能崇拜撒旦很长的时间。走在拒绝神的路上，但是如果他们一旦能够回转，那么也是说明他们是可以被修复的，就是只到一个不可修复的临界点，才会这样调整才会离开。
So they're connecting. So they're saying on the universe. Okay, they're saying two things. First of all, they're saying, when this happens, you go beyond the point of repair. The indwelling adjuster is immediately released to depart for divination. So when they say immediately, what they're saying, what they're telling us is that when your thought adjuster and your angel decide that you've rejected God completely, there's no help for you. There's no way you're going to change your mind or come back or get fixed. And that is that verdict is sent to Uversa and the universal censors and the ancients of days make that. They're saying all this happens very, very quick, like instantly. There's no time delay. You reject God, you go beyond the point of repair, and immediately your thought adjuster is released. But we know from the previous paragraph that all this other stuff happens. It goes to Uversa, the sensors take a look at you, the reflective spirits, transmit the messages, the ancients of days make the final decision, but they're saying here it happens immediately. So we know all this happens very quickly, but remember, time is different in Uversa. A second might be like 100 years here. So that could be why it happens immediately here, but it actually takes time, a little bit of time there.
对，他就说将这个，那也是摄像调整者天使啊，然后就是大概他们先把这个往上传嘛，然后再通过那个，这个宇宙监察者呀，然后这个超越宇宙的统治者啊，他也要通过这个路最终来那个做出最后的判决，那么判决下来，这个像调整者也会立即被释放，通过同样的程序被释放。But I think it's
I mixed it up. I mixed it up. It's the opposite because it's really 100. Really. Well, no. Really 100 years. Here's like a second there. I got it backwards.
它是这个时间这个
So
but what I'm concerned is that intellectual death is that the brain death someone becomes in turn into a plant state after a certain accident. Is that what intellectual death mean here?
Well, yeah. We call it being a vegetable. Yes.
Yeah.
What they're saying is, yes, that's when so they're saying there's two ways, and that's one. One is the physical mechanism, but they're saying you don't have to be a vegetable because that means your brain is completely dead. They're saying you might still have the lower circuits working. Like there are people that are brain damaged, but they might know who you are. They may even be able to do certain jobs or function. So they're saying you don't have to be a vegetable. That will definitely do it. But as long as you no longer have these higher frequencies, the philosophy and the religion, the worship, that because, and then they're saying in the last sentences here, they say is immediately on the universal the mortal personality. Here they say on the universe records, a mortal personality is considered to have met with death whenever the essential mind circuits of human will action have been destroyed. So they're saying that you may be able to function, but you no longer have free will. They're telling us that free will is associated with the higher adjutant mind circuits. That's why animals don't really have free will. They're not making decisions intellectually. They're really operating more on instinct.
对，这一段的最后一句话就是没有意志心智的身体不再是人嘛，那就是说明这个意志心智哈，这个自由意志呢，它是跟那个比较那个辅助心智之灵比较高级的部分相联系的。那么动物它是没有这个意志心智的，它是这一部分对它是没有的。那么所以这个它是没有自由意志，它只是根据直觉根据本能去行动的，跟人是不一样的。
So they're saying, and again, this is death, irrespective of the continuing function of the living mechanism of the body. The body minus the volitional mind is no longer human, but according to the prior choosing of the human will. Okay, so they're saying, they're saying again, like with spiritual death, they're saying your body can still be alive. Your mind can even still be functioning on the lower levels, but you no longer have free will. You can't make important decisions. You could make maybe minor decisions, you know, of whether to put a jacket on or not, or whether to eat peanut butter or tuna fish, but you don't have that spiritual level of thought connection anymore. So they're saying, but your mind can still be functioning to an extent, but it might be completely non-functioning. And as a matter of fact, your mind might be functioning very well, because you may have just chosen to reject God to such a point. You may be so distorted and evil that you no longer make free will decisions, because you're no longer tuned into what's right and wrong. You're at that point, you're almost operating on like an animal level. You're letting lust and greed and all of these things guide you, but your free will, you may as well not even have free will, because you've given your free will over to evil. That's what they're saying, I think.
对，除了身体上的损坏造成的这种心智回路的破坏以外，那么还有另外的就是心智偏差、智力偏差那部分造成的。对，你的心智还是一部分来讲，还是能，有工作的、有功能的，但是你更多的是受这个动物的那些，贪婪啊、欲望啊这些的，东西来指导你的行动，相当于你，并且你把你的自由意志出卖给了邪恶。
So it's saying, if you, aside from the mental, a damaged brain, okay, let's say your brain hasn't been physically damaged, but your thinking is so distorted, you rejected the teaching, the leading, the guidance of your thought adjuster so completely for so long that there's no point in your thought adjuster trying to guide you and lead you and teach you anymore. You're not, you've closed off, you've put up a wall. You're no longer hearing it. You've rejected it. There's no longer any chance you'll ever hear God again, because you've taken the other path. Now you're operating on an almost animal level. You're no longer a spiritual person.
对，你的大脑哈，就是，受到损坏到一个地步，你就是没有办法来遵从思想调整者的引导，你就是有一堵墙在那儿，没有机会再听到神的声音了，你就是只在这个动物的层面了。
And it says the moment you get to that point where there's no hope for you, you can't be fixed. Nothing can, you could meet Jesus and sit down and have lunch with him, and you're not going to accept God. You're too far gone. The moment there's no turning back, you've crossed that line. Your thought adjuster is released for Divinington. Your thought adjuster, the ancients of days give your thought adjuster you forever to go back to Divinington. You're a lost cause.
对，就是当你到达那个点，你是没有办法修复了，没有希望了。即使跟耶稣一起吃午饭，你也没办法认出他来。你就达到那个临界点之后，这个思想调整就被释放回神之圣都。
So it says here that this happens immediately, but we also know from the previous paragraph that it goes to the ancients of days, and the universal sensors, it has to be verified. It's not just your thought adjuster and your angel. Well, this guy's gone. No point in staying here. No, it goes all the way to the Ancients of Days, and they have to release you. So even though it happens immediately, I was wrong when I said 1 minute of time is like 100 years, and that I had it backwards. It's actually the exact opposite. A second there is like 100 years. That's not the exact. It tells us in the book exactly what a second there is and how long it is here. But I'm just saying it's much slower here. But with that in mind, because I had it backwards, with that in mind, they're just able to do things very, very quickly when they want to.
对，他们的决定可能是很快坐车，但是在我们这个时间里边有可能是比较慢的，但是呢都会遵循同样的程序来释放内在的调整者。
Time, they have a very different relationship to time than we do.
对，我们这在时间里边，这个对，就是所以这些词它在不同的那个维次可能意义不一样的。
Now it says here, the body minus the volitional mind is no longer human, but according to the prior choosing, okay. They say, but according to the prior choosing of the human will, the soul of such an individual may survive. So what they're saying is that if you're brain damaged and if you're brain damaged and you can't make free will decisions or tune into the higher adjutant frequencies, you're considered dead, and your thought adjuster is allowed to go back to Divinington. There's no point in your thought adjuster staying in your body if it can't communicate with you. But they're saying in this case, prior to the choosing of the human will, the soul of an individual may survive. So you may have someone who's brain dead, but their soul is fine. So the thought adjuster, when their physical body dies, their thought adjuster will come back to them in the Urantia world. Do you know what I'm saying? If they haven't rejected God.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that this paragraph is mainly deal with those, vegetable.
No,
the person who becomes a vegetable.
No, there's many different things it's saying.
And also, like if you are joined, you have no way to make decision again, but before you get that incident, whatever your soul, the status of your soul chose will become whatever, the fate of your next life.
Yes. That's the easiest way to say it is like, hey, if you're brain dead, you're dead, your thought adjuster goes, and but it'll come back after you die physically.
No, all those mentally ill person, because before they become mad, they become, cannot control themselves. Their soul may not that bad, so their eternal fate may not be determined by their ill state, but may be determined by whatever before they become mentally ill, before they lost the relational decision capacity.
Their eternal state, there's the state of their soul, will never be determined by the physical state of their brain. Never. That's totally separate. It's the status, their status before the brain damage is what matters. Now, if they're born brain damaged, then I'm not sure how that works.
就是他对大脑没有损坏之前他的人类意愿那时候的选择会成为这个决定这个个体的灵魂是否会续存的根据，而不是他发生这种的大脑损坏之后，或者发生智力偏差之后，或者是就是那种有精神病的那种人，他没有办法做他们 主动的意志的选择，那么在他们发生这种状况之前的意志的选择，就成为决定这个个体灵魂的续存的方向。
It's possible that those people may be born as children up on the Urantia world, so they get a chance to live a life and make their choice to, you know what I mean? Because they were deprived of that choice here.
对，他就是说，他猜想有可能这部分人会在那个灵智性世界出生为孩子，因为他们没有机会做最终的选择。
But it's very important. They're not just talking about extreme brain damage or vegetable state, because they're saying in the first sentence, when the vital circuits of the higher adjutant are disrupted through the aberrations of intellect or because of the partial destruction of the mechanism of the brain. So they're saying two different important things here. One, it's just the lower circuits might still be working fine, but when the higher circuits are, that's all that matters. You no longer can have free will or have the connection to the philosophical and spiritual part of your brain. So that's all that matters. And the other thing is that there's two ways this can happen. One is through the physical disruption, a physical problem with your brain. The other is through aberrations of intellect. So that means your mind can be working fine, but your reasoning, your thinking has become ill. An aberration, I would say it's like a mental illness, but not because there's something physical. Like there's a lot of crazy people. They're mentally ill, but their mind's working okay. It's like criminally insane. It's like the criminally insane, or it's different than the mentally ill.
就是他们那个，他这儿强调的还不是说我说的那个植物人的状态，他只是说你只要那个高级辅助侍奉那个回路破坏了，就会出现这种的就会定义为这个心智死亡的状态。这个他就是没有办法做出意志性的，就没有办法正常推理啊、思考啊，然后这种破坏没有办法修复。
In fact, elsewhere in the book, it says that when you choose evil enough, again and again, repeatedly, you keep choosing evil, you do become mentally insane. Or you will eventually become insane mentally. And that what they're saying is you will no longer be able to differentiate between good and evil. You get to a point where you're just lying to yourself. You no longer know the truth from the lies.
对，还有些人他就是持续的选择邪恶，那么他也会变得就是脑力方面、心智方面变成就是没有理智了，他也失去了辨别好坏的能力。
That's why I think that when you have this mental aberration that they're talking about, I think it probably goes along with the spiritual death, because you're no longer able to recognize your spirit or listen to God or hear your thought adjuster communicating with you. So I think that the mental aberration would lead to this spiritual death also. It sounds to me like you couldn't really have one without the other. But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that.
联系到这 aberration intellect 就是智力偏差，他说往往跟那个灵性的死亡是肩并肩的，就非常接近的一个概念。
Let me just go back and see something that in the first part is when the mortal man is finally rejected. Okay, so the spiritual soul death, then has been pronounced spiritually, morally bankrupt. So they're saying you've rejected it, but how do you do that? You do it through your mind. So I guess what they're saying is that you can reject the spiritual without being mentally ill or having your mind become like criminally insane. You can still think very, like maybe like a hardcore atheist who's not going to believe in God no matter, even if God comes over and slaps him in the face. Maybe that would be the spiritual death, and the mental death would be when they reach the same conclusion, but by distorted thinking, maybe by worshiping Satan, becoming a satanic worship, maybe through some kind of, that's what I think. I think there's two ways of reaching this spiritual death. One is through distorted thinking, and one is through just rejecting God. Your mind still works fine, but you just don't want any part of God.
第一部分的灵性死亡往往只是就是他们的思维出了问题，但是他们脑力的总的来讲还是运作正常的，跟第二个那个不大一样。
我有个问题琪琪，就是这里说到一个 mortal personality is considered to have met with death， 这里不是说这个 personality 死亡，而是说这个 personality 遇到了一个心智死亡，是吗？是这个意思吗
？The universe records a mortal personality is considered on the
对，这里用到了一个 personality， 但 personality 它是不死的。personality 是永存的呀。
What?
My question is
no.
Mortal personality.
这个
personality is
是
eternal.
不是人格，不是永存的。人格它跟这个灵魂它是连在一起的。如果这个灵魂没有续存，这人格也不会续存的。而只是说的那个 OK
没有，这里灵魂还没有死，因为这个灵魂还是可能继续存的。灵魂在intellectual death 的时候，灵魂还没有死，但这里用到了一个 personality died. You mean if the intellectual
mortal personality.
In case of the mind death,
Urantia personality. Yeah.
Personality 它是永存的。如果就这个灵魂一直续存 ，personality 它也是不死的。但这里用到了一个 personality met with death， 就不知道是怎么理解。
就是它作为这个 personality。Yeah, personality, mortal personality is considered to have met with death. Did you see that sentence, Heidi?
Mortal personality here on the universe records, a mortal personality is considered to have met with death whenever the essential mind circuits of the human will. Yes.
So personality will not die as long as the soul survives, right? So here is only the mortal personality dies. But next life, we are going to attain a Urantia personality. Is that true?
My question is the personality is it's changeless during the whole life of the soul, so it's eternal. Why here it said the mortal personality have met with death? Does it mean the personality died when, in case of intellectual death?
They're saying that as far as the universe is concerned, you're dead. your body, and you are your personality. So that's that. So your body is still alive, but as far as the universe is concerned, you're dead already. You're no longer even, your name isn't even listed in the database.
No, Heidi. See the last sentence, and even without
The soul is still
without will function, without a solid mind, but our soul, the soul means still survive. So in this sentence, it does not mean that it's erased from universe record, but only the
I
mortal
see.
personality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Good
different
question.
with the first case.
Right. No, you're right.
Different
Because
with the spiritual death.
yes. I'm thinking of spiritual. I'm getting mixed up with spiritual death. Yes, this is saying this. You're on the universe records. A mortal person is considered to have met with death, but they mean they're saying there's three kinds of physical, of what we consider physical death: spiritual, mental, and physical. And the mental, as far as they're concerned, it is complicated. This is death irrespective of the good. They're saying that the mind is the volition is no longer human, but according to prior choosing, the soul may survive. So they're saying you're dead, but it may be temporary. The minute your soul, your thought adjuster leaves, you're, as far as the universe goes, you're dead, but you may come back to life if you've chosen to survive. Now,
OK，我可以翻译吗？Can I translate?
yes, because I'm not doing a very good job.
No, I basically understand what you mean. 它是这一句嘛，中间这一句，沈丽表示怀疑的是那句什么意思？在宇宙记录中，只要人类意愿行动的重要心智回路被摧毁，凡人格就被视为死亡。它就是这个地方是凡人人格被视为死亡。那么 Heidi 的解释就是说，因为这个相当于就是拿我们就是脑死亡，就是那个思想调整者被释放之后，他不有一个间歇吗？那个当下一个生命来临，就是再组合的成为你的灵智性的人格的时候，它是有一个间歇的。但是呢，在这个间歇的期间，你的凡人人格就被视为死亡，它是就是这样子的。因为这脑死亡的人，不见得一定他人格就不会续存到下一个灵智性世界。
Listen, this paper is called Personality Survival. So we're gonna read all about personality survival. There's many more pages all about this.
对，因为这一章是关于人格续存的嘛，他就是所以他把他的人格呀跟自我性的关系啊，让人格的死亡的几种方式啊，他都是这一篇主要 focus 讲这个东西。
So we're gonna read about how many people, personalities, die physically, but they go into a sleep. They become what they're called sleeping survivors. They don't go right to the Urantia world in 3 days. They can sleep for 1,000 years or 2 days. It's the same to them because they're in an unconscious state. So those people, they are survivors, but they're in a sleeping state. So they're dead. They are dead, but they're going to come back to life on the Urantia worlds. And these people who have died mentally, but have chosen to survive before they died mentally, they're just like sleeping survivors. They're dead, but they're going to come back. They're going to survive.
对，那个就是有一类的续存者，他叫沉睡的续存者，那么他可以2000到1000年，几千，就是他 是死了，但是他还会被复活，他还会在下一个灵智性世界复活。那么大概这智性死亡的有一部分人，他就是可以被归到这一类的沉睡续存者。
But their bodies may still be alive.
但是这些人的身体有可能还在，还没死。
As a matter of fact, they may already be they may already be sleeping survivors. There's if their thought adjusters left them, their souls may already be, yeah, you know what I mean? They may be in the same exact state as sleeping survivors. And their physical bodies may still be alive, but they may already be considered sleeping survivors, for all we know.
对，这些人有可能他的身体还没死，但是有可能他已经就算是就是沉睡的那个续存者当中了。
So, I mean, there's all these near-death experience people. They're physically dead, but their spirit is very much alive, and they're having all these incredible experiences. But their brain is temporarily dead. But in that case, I shouldn't even bring this up. Don't even translate this, because it'll just confuse everyone. Because in that case, their thought adjusters haven't even left them. So don't even go there.
But it's a very good case, you know.
Well, it's another case, right?
Yeah, very good case.
So they could be brain dead
because it's a temporary damage. It can be fixed. So thought adjuster did not leave them. That makes perfect sense.
Okay, then you can translate it.
他就说在一些濒死体验当中，那些人呢，他们在比如说在昏迷状态啊，也大脑也没有脑活动啊，但是呢，他们回来汇报的那些的很令人讶异的经验当中，对，这些人对他的身体和大脑都处于那种的死亡状态，但是思想调整者仍然没有离开他们，因为这个是临时的、暂时的一种工作的状态。
Okay, and now we'll talk about the physical body death, which should be pretty simple. When death overtakes a human being, the adjuster remains in the citadel of the citadel. I don't know why I have trouble with that word, of the mind, until it ceases to function as an intelligent mechanism, about the same time that the measurable brain energy cease their rhythmic vital pulsations. Following this dissolution, the adjuster takes leave of the vanishing mind just as unceremoniously as entry was made years and proceeds to Divinington by way of Uversa. So when you die physically, when your body dies and your mind dies, old age or disease or accident, whatever it is, you're at that point, you're dead. But if you've chosen, and you're at that point when you physically die, your thought, because you're not good, it's not going to be repaired. You're dead. Your thought adjuster goes to Divinington. It leaves you and it goes by way of Uversa. It stops at Uversa for some reason. It like checks in. Then it goes to Divinington. Now, if you survive, your thought adjuster is going to come back. You're going to be reassembled on the Urantia world at some point, either in 3 days, or you're going to be a sleeping survivor, and in 10 years, or the next resurrection, whenever the next mass resurrection is, which is a whole group of people being resurrected at the same time and going in a group. It could be billions of people to the next world. So they happen every, I think, millennium, like maybe every 1,000 years, or when there's a special, there can be special resurrections, like when Jesus came back, he did a special resurrection thing. There's, anyway, that's when you die, 2 things, 3 things, either you level, and at that point your thought adjuster leaves and he's never going to come back and it's over for you. Or 3 days later you wake up in the Urantia world and you're reassembled and your thought adjuster comes back. When you wake up, your thought adjuster is already back in you. Or you become a sleeping survivor and you have to wait for the next resurrection, and then you wake up in the Urantia world and your thought adjuster is there.
对，就是第三种情况，就是一般的很正常的死亡的状况，身体死亡，然后带来肉体和心智都停止运作了嘛。然后呢，这种就是死亡了之后呢，就是调整者呢会经由优厄萨，大概是报道一下还是怎么样，然后再前往神之圣都。就是这样的话，你就是有可能在3天之后呢，你在那个下一个灵智世界，复活的那个复活的时候，你的思想调整又再回来，就是重新组合，就是跟那一个灵智的身体重新组合，你又成为你的人格在那个世界继续续存，或者是你是那个沉睡的续存，也是经过时间不等的沉睡，然后会经历一个那个大的人群的，就是一些的沉睡续存者会就是说大批的集体唤醒的一个那个说1000年啊，或者是几天啊，他是说有一个对，有一个特别的复苏，特别的苏醒这个阶段，这种大的 event。
If you've reached your third psychic circle and or if you have your own personal guardian angel, and or a few other things, you're going to go right to the Urantia world in 3 days. Otherwise, you'll probably become a sleeping survivor.
如果你就是灵魂进化到你就是已经有这个个人的守护天使了，基本上来讲，你是不是3天之后就在灵之界复活，不用那个
But you don't have to worry, because once your mind dies of the final death, you have no sense of time at all. You're unconscious, but like deep, like beyond unconscious. Your mind it's not even alive, and you have no concept of time. So when you wake up on the Urantia world 3 days later, it's like you died, and for you instantly wake up because you have no sense of those 3 days. So if you become a sleeping survivor, and even if you're dead for 1,000 years, it's for you, it's like you died and you woke up on the Urantia world. It's just like when you sleep. Sometimes when you sleep, you don't know if you've been asleep for 1 hour or 8 hours, because you're not really aware. Very often, sometimes you are aware of time when you sleep. You know what I mean? But sometimes you have no idea.
对，他就说，当我们这个心智死了的时候，实际上我们就失去了时间的概念。那个我们就是有可能觉得，我死了，马上就醒过来了，不管是3天啊，还是你沉睡，续存者你1000年啊，你可能都是觉得，我好像一下子就醒来了，就到了一个新的世界。
So you don't have to
hold
worry.
on. I'm going to open the door for the cat.
Oh, okay. I'm going to take a 1-minute break too.
Yeah.
And then we'll read the next section. Okay. Okay. Are you back, Ricky? I don't think she's back yet.
She said she's going to open the door for the cat.
Yeah, she has a cat named Sunny. She only got it not too long ago. So I think she was inspired by my cats, actually. Or my dog. Yeah. So she loves Sunny, and she takes trips. She travels. And she takes Sunny in the car with her for long trips.
Yeah, 14 hour, you know.
Sunny is a great travel. Sunny gets to travel much more than I do.
You know, now you know, nowadays it's getting warmer, you know. He like to go outside at this hour every day. So that's why he, you know, making noise, you know, trying to get me open the door for him.
Well, you know, cats must be obeyed.
Yeah.
They tell you what to do.
We are the slave of the cat.
Yes, they tell you what to do, and you better do it.
Exactly.
就像国内说铲屎官。
对，没错，我们都是猫奴。
So yeah. Anyone who has a cat knows who's boss.
Yeah, they are gentle, but they are really
Very bossy.
demanding.
Very, very bossy.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to read the next couple paragraphs. Oh, good.
Yeah.
We're going to finish this section today.
Yeah.
Okay. After death, the material body returns to the elemental world from which it was derived. But two non-material factors of surviving personality persist: the pre-existent thought adjuster, with the memory transcription of the mortal career, proceeds to Divinington, and there also remains in the custody of the destiny guardian, that's the guardian angel, the immortal Urantia soul of the deceased human. These phases and forms of soul, these once kinetic but now static formulas of identity, are essential to repersonalization on the Urantia worlds. And it is the reunion of the adjuster and the soul that reassembles the surviving personality, that reconsciousizes you at the time of the Urantia awakening. Okay.
OK，死亡之后，物质身体返回其来源的元素世界，但续存人格的两个非物质因素依然存在。先前已存在的思想调整者，他带着对凡人生涯的记忆记录，前往神之圣都，而逝者不朽的灵智性灵魂，在命运守护者的保管下也依然存在。这些灵魂的阶段和形式，这些曾经是动态的，但现在变为静态的个人身份配方，对于在宅下世界中的再人格化是至关重要的，并且正是调整者和灵魂的再度合一，重新组装了续存的人格，使你在灵智性觉醒时重新获得意识。啊，这里我明白了，就人格是死了以后再复活的，它不是一直在的。
对。
OK， 那我明白了。OK。
Okay. So after death, we're talking about this is you know any material death, body. They're talking about material death, physical body. After death, the material body returns to the elemental world from which it was derived. So that what that means is that, you know, you can burn it, you can bury it, but the physical elements return to the planet, right? Whether they're ashes or whether they're decomposed, it returns to the world, which the physical world.
对，第一句呢很简单呢，就是我们的肉身物质身体嘛，来自这个元素世界。那么不管我们是焚烧了，还是就让它自己分解了，它都是要回到这个元素世界。
And it says it's kind of poetic because it says returns to the elemental world from which it was derived, because our life was actually created, our physical life was actually created from the elements of the earth. The Urantia book believes in evolution. So we actually came from these one-celled animals in the sea, and we evolved, and then we came to the land, and we became frog-like creatures, and then we became this and that, and eventually over millions of years we became human beings. So they're saying our physical bodies were derived from elements of this earth, and that after we die we go back, we decompose, we become part of these elements again. So it's kind of nice.
对，我们物质身体是由那个物理元素组成的，物理元素来自于我们这个星球，所以死了之后尘归尘，土归土。
And then it says, but two non-material factors of surviving personality persist: the pre-existent thought adjuster, with the memory transcription of the mortal career proceeds to Divinington, and there also remains in the custody of the destiny guardian the immortal Morantial soul of the deceased human. So they're saying your physical body dies, but the parts of you that weren't physical survive. The thought adjuster, and the thought adjuster goes to Divinington, which is his home planet, but it takes with it the mental, what do they call it? With the memory transcription of the mortal career. So you're not just your memories. It's not saying it takes your memories. It says the mental transcription of the mortal career. So everything that happened, a complete record of your entire life, the thought adjuster has. And it takes, when the thought adjuster goes, even if you don't survive, it takes all that with him. That becomes part of their experience. But we're going to assume you do survive in this case, because he's going to come back and then you'll get that back. Oh, wait, I'll let you translate. Yeah.
但是呢，续存人格的两个非物质因素依然存在啊。第一个这个非物质因素就是我们的思想调整者，对，他前往神之圣都嘛，暂时回到那里，并且他带着我们凡人生涯的记忆记录。那么即使我们没有续存，那么这种的记忆记录也成为思想调整者他的经验的一部分啊，他是这样的。然后呢，第二个是什么？第二个是灵智性的灵魂。这两个非物质因素是我们带到下一个是那个人生的下一个这个旅程的。
Now we know that we also have that the soul is separate from the thought adjuster. The thought adjuster is our spirit, but the soul is a product of our mind and our thought adjuster working and developing this other entity, this other component throughout our lifetime. So what happens to that? Well, the guardian, your guardian, takes possession, it takes your soul to the Morantia world. Your guardian angel takes possession of your soul. So these are like real things that have to be like your memories, your soul. These are real things. They're not just like, hey, out in the air somewhere. No, they're real things that someone has to be responsible for.
对呀，那思想调整者是我们灵性的部分，那个灵魂呢是思想调整者，跟我们的心智就是合作产生的这么一个存有，是我们的人格的一部分。那么，是我们的护卫天使呢，就是来负责来保管我们的灵魂。这个是真正的，是一个真的一个东西，不是空气，它是一个真的需要保管的这么一个宝贝。
Okay, so these phases and forms of soul, these once kinetic identity are essential to the repersonalization on the Urantia world, and it is the reunion of the adjuster and the soul that reassemble the surviving personality, that reconsciousizes you at the time of the Urantia awakening. So whether you go to sleep for 1,000 years or wake up 3 days later, when you wake up on the Urantia world, your thought adjuster, you have a new body there. So your thought adjuster comes and enters your body and becomes part of you. And a guardian angel, whether it was your group angel or your personal angel, implants your soul into your new Urantia body. And this combination of the thought adjuster with your memory transcripts of your mortal career and your soul, which was developing throughout your lifetime, when they get together in a new body, that's when your personality comes back to life.
Yeah. 那么就是你睡着了吗？然后你在那个灵智性世界醒来，那么就是那个思想调整者进入你的灵智身体，然后护卫天使呢把那个灵魂移植到你的这个灵智性的身体，再加上你的那个就是前面人生的这个经验的所有的转写那个版本转写的那些的密码这一起这些组合在一起，你的人格就复活了。
So you have this Urantia body that they've created for you, but it's not you until the adjuster comes back with your memory transcripts and the soul and the guardian angel deposits your soul into that body. And it's interesting because it says the reunion of the adjuster and the soul reassemble the surviving personality. That's how you, when the moment, as soon as the soul and the thought adjuster come back together in this new body, then you wake up, you're conscious again. And when you're conscious, your personality reassembles. So what's interesting here is that it doesn't say that the thought adjuster takes your personality or the guardian angel. It doesn't say what happened. Your personality, no one really takes charge of it. It just reassembles when all the components are together. That's your thought adjuster, your soul. Then when you wake up, your personality is there.
对，这个灵智性身体就是专门为你制作的你的记忆的转写版本连着你的这个灵魂，然后就是把它给存放进去，然后思想调整者和灵魂，然后这样跟你的灵智性身体这样重新这么一组合，你的这个人格就回来了，就是你的那个意识就苏醒了。
It's like your personality needs a vehicle to express itself through. It can't just exist in nothing. It needs a body, some kind of body, some kind of soul, some kind of spirit. It needs the whole enchilada, as we say in English, the whole enchilada, which is a Mexican word, of course, Mexican food. So it's almost as if your personality is always there, but it just can't express itself without the means to do it, right? You can't talk without a mouth. You can't think without a brain. So it needs these things to exist, to express itself. But it doesn't, we don't know where it goes or what happens to it. I think it's still kind of there somewhere, but it just needs you to be, it needs a vehicle. It needs these components to be together. And the minute they are, it's there.
他就是说这个人格呢，他好像需要一个具体的这么一个容器啊，或者一个仪器啊，或者是一个身体啊，来表达自己。就像你没有嘴，你不能够说话一样，我们就是一旦有这样的一个仪器在那儿，一个车辆在那儿，他就可以表达他自己。
Okay, so okay, so I'll read the next part. For those who do not have personal seraphic guardians, the group custodians faithfully and efficiently perform the same service of identity safekeeping and personality resurrection. The seraphim are indispensable to the reassembly of personality. Okay, you can read that.
OK， 对于那些没有个人炽天使守护者的人，群体监护者会忠实而有效地执行相同的身份保护和人格复活服务。炽天使是重新组装人格不可或缺的。OK，
So they're saying that's a big job, one of the big jobs that the seraphim do. But they say you don't have to worry if you have a personal, your guardian or group guardian. Either way, whoever your guardian has been, whether it's a group guardian or a personal guardian, they're gonna take care of your soul and reassemble you on the Urantia world.
对，这一小段就是说，你如果没有个人执天使呢，也不要担心那个群体监护的那些的天使，他也会忠实有效的执行相同的任务，就是重新组装你的人格，在新的世界。
Okay, so then it says, this is the last paragraph of this section. So then it says, and the next paragraph, I'll let you translate this, Ricky, before I begin. The next section, section 4, which we'll read next week, is adjusters after death. So what we're going to read about is what happens to the thought adjusters after we die. But this is the last paragraph of this section, which I'm going to read now.
下一次呢是读的是我们死了以后凡人死了以后思想逃走者的状况。那么现在我们读这个第3部分的最后一段。
Okay, upon death, the thought adjuster temporarily loses personality, but not identity. The human subject temporarily loses identity, but not, this is really interesting, but not personality. On the mansion worlds, both reunite in eternal manifestation. Never does a departed thought adjuster return to earth as the being of former indwelling. Never is personality manifested without the human will. And never does Wow. And never does a disadjusted human being after death manifest active identity or in any manner establish communication with the living beings of earth. Wait, never does a disadjusted human being after death. Oh, okay. That means before your adjuster returns to you on the next world in the in-between phase, manifest active identity or in any manner establish community. Okay, okay. Such disadjusted souls are wholly and absolutely unconscious during the long or short sleep of death. There can be no exhibition of any sort of personality or ability to engage in communications with other personalities until after completion of survival. Those who go to the mansion worlds are not permitted to send messages back to their loved ones. It is the policy throughout the universes to forbid such communication during the period of a current dispensation.
OK，人死亡时，思想调整者暂时失去人格，但不会失去身份。人类主体暂时失去身份，但不会失去人格。在宅下世界，两者以永恒的形式重新结合。一个离开的思想调整者，他永远不会作为先前内住的存有返回地球。如果没有人类的意志，他的人格永远不会彰显。而一个与调整者分离的人类存有，在死后，他永远不会显现活跃身份，或以任何方式与地球上的生灵建立联系。这些与调整者分离的灵魂，在死后间是完全、绝对没有意识的。在完成续存之前，他们不会显现任何形式的人格或与其他人格进行交流的能力。那些前往宅下世界的人不被允许向他们挚爱的人发送消息，禁止在当前天命期间进行此类交流，是整个宇宙的一项政策。Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot in here. Okay, upon death, the thought of okay, this is very interesting. So the human subject temporarily lose identity, but not personality. So what they're saying is that your personality survives. It doesn't die. It never dies. It always exists, but it can't, it's like it's not conscious until everything's reassembled. And adjuster loses personality. When the thought adjuster leaves you with the transcript of all your memories of this life, it goes back to Divinington, but it doesn't take your personality with it. The thought adjuster, until you fuse with your thought adjuster, from your personality.
第一句相当于就是表明这个人格和这个就是思想调整者，他就是跟我们共享这一个人格嘛。我们这个人格它是一直在的，只是在死亡期间它是没有意识的，一直到复活的时候它才恢复意识。但是这个都有的，这个我们不会失去，只是就是在宅下世界呢，思想调整者跟我们重新结合，那个我们就是然后那个像调整所携带的我们的记忆嘛也都回来，然后我们就意识也就回来了。
So it's easy enough for us to understand that the thought adjuster temporarily loses personality but not identity. We can understand that because the thought adjuster had identity before it ever was given to us as our personal guide, our personal spirit. So it goes back to being what it was before it joined with us to begin with. And it takes our memory transcripts with it. And we're dead, so okay, we can understand that. And then it says, the human subject temporarily loses identity, but not personality. Now that is much harder to understand.
他说第一句哈还比较好理解，思想调整者暂时失去人格，但不会失去身份，因为他跟我们离开了，跟我们 share 同一个人格。那么他死亡的时候一分离，他失去人格，但是他的身份，他在没有跟我们那个进入我们里面做我们思想调整的时候，他就有他的身份。那么第一句话来讲就是还比较理解，但是第二句人类主体暂时失去身份。但不会失去人格这一句还比较难理解。
So they're saying, well, you lost your body, you lost your mind, you lost your memories, you lost your soul, but you still have your don't worry, you still have your personality.
这个就相当于说啊，你失去了心智，失去了身体，失去了记忆，失去了灵魂，但是呢，你的人格还在。
You can't do much with it.
对，你不能做很多，但是你没有失去人格。
You're not conscious.
你没有意识。
You can't make any decisions. You can't talk to anyone.
对，你没有办法做任何的决定，没有办法跟任何人交流。
But you still have your personality. You are still your personality.
但是你仍然是你的人格，你仍然是你。
So I think what that means, that's very hard for us to understand. Very hard, at least for me.
对我来说，这个非常难理解。
I think what that means is you still exist. You're still a person. You have not stopped existing. No one has put an end to your existence.
这个实际上我理解的意思就是说你还存在，你从来没有停止存在。It's just become latent, become potential.
Yes, you're in limbo. You're in limbo.
你在那个这个杠下面，就是你这个人格变为一个隐的状态，不显的状态。
So okay. The human subject temporarily loses identity, but not personality. So you've lost your identity. You'll never be the same identity again. You'll never look exactly like you looked here. You're going to lose certain characteristics. You're no longer the same you that you were in this life, but your personality, the part of you that's your pure personality, this gift of God, this part, it's basically indestructible. It's basically eternal. It's a gift from God. So basically no one can take it anywhere. No one can do anything with it. It's just going to exist until God decides it. I think your personality will always exist, because even when you die, I think it gets absorbed into the supreme being. I think personality is pretty indestructible.
对，这个人格它是不能被毁坏的。你在新的世界形成之后，你还是同一个你，那么这个是神给的礼物，这个是没有人能拿走的。你仍总是你，即使你没有达到续存，你也是被这个至高存在者吸收了。
Because it's like they're saying the body goes back to the elements that it came from. So I think that when a person finally does die, if you reject survival, your personality becomes part of the supreme, and that's God, where it came from. So it's not like it just stops existing, but it just changes, becomes part of God again. If you reject survival.
即使就是你拒绝了续存，但是你也被这个至高存在的，就是我们所从来的这一部分，永恒的这一部分，你吸收进去了，变成它的一部分了。
okay, okay, upon death, but the human subject temporarily lose identity, but not personality. Yeah, you're never going to be the same. You're never going to have the same identity, but you'll have new identities. You'll have many new identities throughout your future evolution. That's kind of like reincarnation, but it's starting here and it's moving out through the universes.
对，但是呢，你在新的世界，你获得了一个新的身份啊，虽然人格是不变的，但是你获得了一个新的身份。
And then they say on the mansion worlds, both reunite in eternal manifestation. Okay, so they say in eternal manifestation. So that means once you get your identity. So I'm sorry, I was wrong then. You won't keep getting new identities. It's saying eternal manifestation. So on the mansion, you'll get new bodies, but not identities. So you're losing your identity, but you get a new identity on the mansion. Well, no, maybe it's not even a new identity because it says they both reunite in eternal manifest. Okay, so I was wrong about all that identity stuff.
对，他说他这个错误了，他不是说你获得新的身份，因为思想调整者他没有实际身份嘛，你在在下世界，然后这两者哈，这个人格跟这个思想调整者这么一结合呢，实际上就是思想调整者的身份就成为我们的身份，不是我们持续的获得新的身份。
So you do have one identity, just like you have one personality, and if you choose to survive, you'll always have that identity, and they're two different things, but they're connected.
对，当你就是选择续存的时候，思想调整者就成为你的身份，就是身份和人格这两个是相联系的，但是是有点不同的。
我是 sorry，one question，就是好像是不是就是凡人跟思想调整者融合的时候，宇宙会赐给他一个名字，就像那个那个方达
对，
和
就是根据思想调整者的身份。
是这个时候我们有了一个宇宙的永恒的身份，是这样的吗？
对。So Shirley questioned that after we fused with the thought adjuster, we obtained a universal identity, like the first human couple who obtained the new name. So after
Fonda or
well, we do when we. Yeah, and on Fonda. But when we merge with our thought adjusters, we do get a new name. But I think what it's telling us here is that because it says we temporarily lose identity, but not personality. On the imagined worlds, both reunite eternal manifestation. So that's telling us that we never lose. We don't get a new identity ever. I thought we did, but I was wrong. Our identity is our identity. We might change but bodies, vehicles, we might change the way our but our soul, we just will always have one soul, one thought adjuster, one personality, and together that makes our identity. So that our identity will never change. We'll get a new name. And we'll become a permanent citizen of the universe when we fuse, but it's the same identity.
对，就是我们可以在不同的进化阶段哈，采取不同的载具，但是我们有同一个灵魂啊，同一个像调整者，这个身份是不变的。就是给出这个新的名字，代表我们成为宇宙的永久居民。
In other words, you are you, Shenli. Ricky, you are you. Heidi, I am me. We're not just our personalities. We're also our thought adjusters and our souls and our mind. It's not going to change. who we are, you, and you. Personality is a big part of it, but it's not all of it.
对，就说我是我，沈丽是沈丽，海蒂是海蒂，这个是由我们的人格、我们的灵魂、我们的身份，就是共同决定的我们的独特性。
I mean, we don't know, like, we don't know, like when I look at Rick, if I look at Ricky, I don't know which part of her I'm seeing is more of her personality and because I thought adjuster, and which part is more her soul, because I've never seen her without one of those components. If I could see her just with her personality, but her thought adjuster was on vacation, then I could say, oh, that's the part of her, but we never will. So we're always seeing this combination of things that make us who we are.
对，就是这个结合呢，定义我们的所是，我们没有办法区分出来。哎，我看到的，Ricky 的这一部分是他的人格部分呢，还是他的像调整者的部分呢，还是怎么样？它是一个总体的一个彰显。
Okay, so now it says, never does a departed thought adjuster return to the earth as the being of former indwelling. Never is personality manifested without the human will, and never does it. Okay, it's too many things. So they're just saying the thought adjuster cannot, never does a departed return to the as the being. They're saying once the thought adjuster leaves, it never comes back to this earth as part of as the being of former indwelling. It's just once it's gone, it's gone. The thought adjuster doesn't come back. It can't come back and like be part of you again. Can't come back to earth once it leaves. It's gone.
就是像调整者，他这个到这个地球上内住某一个凡人，然后呢，他离开了之后呢，就不会再作为这个什么存有，就是再返回地球。
Well, that's not entirely true because elsewhere in the book it does say that a thought adjuster can leave you and come back. So that's not entirely true. But once you're dead, once it leaves you because you're dead, either mentally, physically, or spiritually, they're saying it can't come back and like be part of you again once you're dead. In any kind of death. It can leave you while you
他是说永远不会作为先前内住的存有返回地球。他就也是不会再回来，他一旦离开这个内住的这个人，他也不会再回来，再住进同一个人，也是这样的意思。
They're saying never is the personality manifested without the human will. Oh, wait, let me just read this. Never does a departed thought adjuster return. Okay. Never is personality manifested without the human will, and never does a disadjusted human being after death manifest active identity or in any manner establish okay, and never does a disadjusted human being after death manifest active identity. Okay, they're saying that never does a personality manifest that. Okay, they're saying the personality can't manifest without will. And we know from the previous paragraphs that will had to do with the higher adjutant spirits. So that means your mind has to be functioning in order to have will. So you can't, so if your mind's not functioning or if you're dead, the personality can't operate. And on the Urantia world, it has to be connected to your soul in order to operate. So that's what they're saying. Without all these components, your personality can't operate. and your adjuster can't come back without them all. And when you don't have a thought adjuster after death, you can't have an active identity. So after death, you can't exist without your thought adjuster. You're not going to wake up on the Urantia worlds without your thought adjuster and just be this person, this Urantia person roaming around without a thought adjuster. It can't happen.
对，这个自由意志啊，是取决于这个心智，功能正常。如果没有这个心智的，高级的部分的那个功能正常的人格就没有办法正常的运转，正常的起作用。思想长生者不回来，就是死后他如果不回来的话，那我们也不会在下一个世界，我们也不会醒来。
So they're saying when your thought adjuster goes to after you die, when your thought adjuster goes to Divinington, and you're completely unconscious, and they say during the long or short sleep of death. It's like I said, it might be 3 days, it might be 1,000 years. So while you're in that unconscious state, you can't have any communication with living people on earth.
对，在思想长生者回到神之圣多了，然后你这个陷入无意识的状态，这个或者从3年到上千年的这个休眠期间呢，你没有办法跟地球上的活人进行任何的交流。
Or any personalities. It says with this can be any personality. It says or any manner established communication with the living beings of earth. Never does a disadjusted human being after death manifest active identity or in any manner establish communication with the living beings of earth. And then such a disadjusted souls are wholly and absolutely unconscious, and there can be no exhibit of any sort of personality or ability to engage in communications with other personalities. So you can't contact any living beings on earth or any other personalities anywhere when you're in that state. Your soul is in the care of your angels. Your memory transcripts are off with your thought adjuster. You can't reassemble without those things. You can't. So all these things of like, oh, someone died and they're dead and they're in my living room talking to me. That's not really the way it works.
就不光是地球上的活人，你没办法，你在沉睡期间没办法去交流，你也同时跟其他的人格也没有办法有任何的有意义的交流。一直到你下一个那个世界里边，你都又重新组装成一个完整的人格，然后才恢复交流的能力。
It says those who go to the mansion worlds are not permitted to send messages back to their loved ones. So they're saying while you're unconscious, you can't communicate with anyone. While you're in the sleep state, before you reconsciousize, before you're reborn on the mansion worlds. But then they're saying also, after you go to the mansion worlds and your identity is back and you have a new identity and you're conscious, you're not permitted to send messages back to your loved ones.
对，你恢复了这个交流能力，但是呢，这个地方有规矩了，又有政策了，说在你这个重生了，你在其他世界重生之后，你不被允许向他们挚爱的人发送消息。
And they're saying it is the policy throughout the universes so that's not just this universe, saying throughout the universes. So they're saying all 7 super universes, right? To forbid such communication during the period of a current dispensation. And I'll explain that in a minute.
对，就是相当于这个政策是不是在7个超级宇宙都是适用的，整个宇宙的一项政策。那么在当前天命期间是禁止此类交流。
So that's very interesting because they're saying, okay, you die, you go to the mansion world. You can't send messages back to people. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to talk to people while they're on Earth. You're not allowed to come back and haunt them and move things around and mess with their minds and grab their hats off their heads. But they're saying that it's forbidden during the period of a current dispensation.
对，他就说你到了宰相世界之后，你不被允许回来，跟这些还在物质世界的人啊、亲人啊，去按喇叭呀，去什么把那东西挪来挪去啊，参与他们的生活呀，从他们头上摘点帽子啊，这些都是不被允许以任何方式发送消息。他只是说这项政策是在当前天命期间实行的，禁止此类交流。
Remember when we read that Andon and Fanta asked if they could send their greetings to us, but they weren't allowed to. But the fact that they told us that is the same thing, and that was very funny. Remember that?
你记不记得我们那时候说到就是最初的人类的时候，安东和方达想要，向地球的人类，致以问候，然后不被允许这样做，我们都觉得很好笑。
So they weren't allowed to send their greetings, but they told us that they wanted to, which is really the same thing as sending their greetings.
对，他说了不禁止他们，问候我们，但是呢，他同时告诉我们，他们这样的行为意图被禁止，其实这本身就是在传递信息啊，发送消息啊。
But you see, that wasn't a current dispensation. They are from a prior many dispensations ago. If they had been from our current okay, do you know what a dispensation is?
No.
Okay, that's when you have these resurrections of all the sleeping survivors. That's called a dispensation is when, like, let's say everyone's sleeping for 1,000 years, and then you have a resurrection of all the sleeping survivors. That's the end of a dispensation.
就是天命时代。那么实际上，安东和方达它不属于我们这个天命时期的，它是很久以前的。那么什么叫 dispensation 呢？就是天命时期呢，比如说那些的沉睡的续存者，他们成批的在沉睡多少年之后，然后成批的把他们复活起来，那么这样一个事件就标志一个天命时代。
So let's say there's a brilliant mathematician on Earth right now. And let's say Newton, the famous mathematician who discovered gravity, let's say he's on a mansion world or in Jerusalem or somewhere, and he takes interest in this mathematical genius on Earth. Well, he's from a different dispensation, so he might be allowed to communicate with this guy. This guy might meet and have a conversation with Newton, either in his dreams or through his angel, or who knows. I'm just saying, it's only saying that you can't have communication with beings from the mansion worlds in a current dispensation. So that means Moses can talk to us if he wants. He can come visit. He can come here. He can have communication. That's what it's saying. I don't know why they didn't let Andon and Fanta, but in a way they did.
他说，比如说，就是举个例子，在古代的那个大数学家、物理学家牛顿，就是发现引力的牛顿，他有可能他在耶路撒冷，然后呢， 他如果想发送什么信息，他可以通过梦境啊，通过人的梦啊什么的，就是来发送信息。他有可能并不属于我们这个天命时期的。或者摩西也不属于这个天命区间的。
Also, we don't know when a dispensation happens. We know that it tells us about a few, like maybe after Adam and Eve, and when Adam and Eve came, there was probably a dispensation. When Jesus died, there was a dispensation, or maybe when he came back to, after he died, right around that time. But we know when some dispensations happened, but we don't know when all the dispensations happen, because even if there's no great spiritual event, every 1,000 years, let's say millennium or something, there's a dispensation. It tells us somewhere in the book how long they are, but we're not sure when they are.
对，他就是我们不确定，这个天运时代是怎么划分的？你也许那个亚当、夏娃他们的来临，算是标志一个天运时代的到来啊，或者是耶稣死亡、耶稣复活，或者是其他的伟大的灵性事件。那么除了这些，是不是也有其他的天命时期呢？好像玉书，他说玉书里边也有能讲到这些东西。
So we're just so if there was a dispensation recently, then someone who lived 200 years ago would be in a prior dispensation.
对，如果这个天命时期最近的一次大规模的复活发生在最近，然后那比如说200年前，那么200年之前的那就不算是我们当前的天命期间。那么这些实际上那些在这之前去到在下世界的人，还是可以被允许来交流的。
I'm not saying that your great grandmother is communicating with you, but I am saying that according to this book, it's possible. They're not forbidden if they're from a different dispensation.
我不是说你的祖父母啊，他一定会跟你交流，但是就是按照这本书的说法，他们是被允许交流的。
Now we're done with this section, but some of you or all of you know that when my sister died, she did communicate with me before she even went to but that might have been because she wasn't on the mansion world yet, because it was probably not 3 days. She was probably in an in-between place. Maybe that's why, because she definitely did. I saw her and she told me not to worry. And I knew she was dead. So maybe she hadn't gone to the mansion world. Maybe she hadn't woken up, or maybe she was a sleeping survivor. Because it says those who go to the mansion world are not permitted to send messages back. It doesn't say before you get there or sleeping survivors, right? So maybe that's what it was.
他说他的姊妹死的时候，的确他看到他了，告诉他一切都好。他说那个有可能是因为他还没到3天啊，还没到在下世界，或者他就是那个沉睡的续存者，就是怎么说呢，都是处于那种中间过渡的那个层面，都还没有到在下世界，才有这种的交流。
Now, a good friend of mine who very much believes in God and Jesus, her husband died, and she had a very vivid dream that he was talking to her, and she's never read the Urantia book, but she described the background, and I told her, he's on the mansion world. You're describing the mansion world exactly.
他那个一个朋友呢， Your friend believe in God or Jesus? Does she believe in God or Jesus? No.
Very, very much, but she's never read the Urantia book.
对，她就是非常的信神的，信耶稣啊。她的丈夫死了的时候，她就说梦见她大概描述的那个梦见，就是她丈夫跟她描述的那个世界，她就说这就是描述的是在下世界的景象，但是实际上这个女的从来没有读过《月亮下之书》。
So she's perfectly describing the mansion worlds as the Urantia book describes them. She's never heard of them. She's never seen them. She's never read about them. And she's describing them to me. And I'm saying, you're describing the mansion. You never heard of these worlds, but I've read about them in the Urantia book. That's where your husband is. You're describing it.
她从来没见过，也没有听说过，也没有读过玉书，但是他就告诉这位朋友，你描述的就是玉书当中的那个在下世界的样子。
Now, right here, they're saying that these people on the mansion world aren't allowed to send messages back, but she saw him in a dream. So that means it wasn't him coming into her room or giving her a message somehow. It was a dream. So anything is, so it's possible. I think that was her thought adjuster giving her a picture of him, letting her know he's okay and this is where he is. So in other words, just because you're technically not allowed to get a message from a loved one, it doesn't mean there's not other ways to communicate or to see them or know about them. Because first of all, near-death experience people, they go without, and they go to these worlds and then they come back here. Secondly, my friend had a dream and she saw her husband on the mansion world. So our thought adjusters can make anything possible.
对，就是这个朋友，她是在梦里边看到她的丈夫在那样的世界里边，那么有可能是她的思想调整者给她这样反射的画面，来告诉她的丈夫没有问题，非常的安好。所以从地势上来讲，虽然那些进宅下世界的人没有办法跟我们那个交流，但是还有其他的方式去还有其他的方式让我们一瞥，就是下一个世界是什么样子的，包括那些濒死体验的人，他们也能够进到这些世界，获得那儿的一瞥。
So I feel like when I want to connect to someone who's died, who may be a sleeping survivor or maybe unconscious or maybe conscious, living their life on the mansion world, not thinking about me, moving on, I feel like through my thought adjuster I can connect to their thought. My thought adjuster can connect to their thought adjuster, which means even though we can't communicate person to person, it's always possible to communicate spirit to spirit. That's what I believe.
对，当我就是想跟那些死去的人交流的时候，或者是他们有可能是那种沉睡的续存者啊什么的，有意识没有意识的，那么我是设想是我的思想调整者能跟他们的思想调整者是一体的能交流，所以如果没有人和人层面的交流，那么灵性层面的交流应该是不受阻拦的，不受限制的。
Now, this is the last thing I'll say, and then we can stop the recording. But now there are so many stories and reports of ghosts on our planet, and some of them are very credible. it seems like something is really going on.
这个好像有很多关于鬼的传说呀，其中有一些报告还是比较可信的。
But according to this book, it's not possible. Dead people don't come back and hang out on this planet. And our relatives, you know, this is telling us right here that there are no ghosts. There's not, your dead sister is not hanging around in your bedroom.
根据这一段呢，就是说好像是说没有鬼啊，那个你的死去的姊妹不会出现在你的卧室。
Or some lady or gentleman who once lived in your house 200 years ago is not still walking around, banging things around, creaking on the stairs, opening doors, turning on lights. According to this book, that is not happening.
没有，就说是好几百年前死的那个住在这儿又死了的那些绅士来在屋子里走来走去的，或者是让楼梯发出声音，或者给你打开灯啊。他说按照这本书，这个是不会发生的。However, there may be those spirits that they are in between that astral plane, 星光层的。
No, because it's telling it just told us that they can't communicate with anyone until they're, when they're before the soul and the thought adjuster is reassembled. So it's saying it can't happen. It just told us that. We just read that.
对，他说按照这本书，这些都不会发生的。
But I'm saying that I have read reports that are very credible. So that I think maybe it's midway creatures, demons, I don't know. But I mean, some of these reports of ghosts and stuff is very credible. So I think there's stuff that does go on. It's just not necessarily who you think it is.
他说有可能是什么中道受造物啊，就那些闹鬼的反正就是他按照这个《月亮下之书》的说法，对，那个当然他也不否认这个有一些很可信的报道。
So yeah, so I'll end it there. But I'm not saying that there's no supernatural events that don't happen, because so many people report them, and some of them, they're not necessarily crazy people. And and I think things do happen, but it's just, according to this book, it's not your dead relative from 20 years ago or something. It's something else that we don't understand. That's what I believe.
的现象的记录，但是他认为不是你死了的亲戚，20年前死了的亲戚，那这些搞的，当然，这些不是他的之见。
Yeah, like sometimes it might just be, our imaginations, but sometimes I think there really is something going on, but we just don't know what it is.